Mike?
Not much. How you doing, Robbie?
I'm all right. I'm a little tired today, but that's all right.
Why are you tired?
Oh man, it was an early morning.
Oh.
Yeah, like 4:15 early.
Oh, I should have texted you.
Yeah, were you about to wake up or about to go to bed?
About to go to bed. No, I went to bed about 2:30. I was up listening to podcast, but I sleep in a little bit. It's just
I know you do.
It's just my pattern.
I know. I went to bed at 8.
Oh, no wonder.
Yeah. So I mean, 4:15 doesn't sound terrible when you think I got close to 8 hours of sleep, but it's still pretty early at 4:15 when it's now 1. I feel like I've been awake for like 2 days already.
Man, how do you talk yourself out of watching that, like primetime TV programming and go to bed, man?
How I talk myself out of it?
Yeah.
There's not much TV going on here these days. I mean, little sports here and there. We have a couple shows that we enjoy, but sleep is by far the most underrated asset. I always hear people brag about how little sleep they get.
Yeah.
Like it's a token of success when really you're just hurting yourself. Like I'm so busy. I'm only getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Well, whatever. You're just wasting your time, in my opinion. It's incredibly important to get sleep, and that's in terms of your personal life, your professional life, and obviously in training. People spend all this money on recovery items and they lack the discipline to take sleep seriously. So I try to take it as seriously as I can. I know I'm not going to get an argument out of you.
No. I've long hailed the benefits of sleep, and I when I was in the corporate world, I would routinely go in late just because I needed more sleep, and I don't know, somehow I worked that out so it didn't affect my position. And I think most people can do that. Just tell your boss. I went into a meeting once and they're like, "You're late," and I said, "Well, I know, I was sleeping." And they just looked at me like, "You got to be kidding me right now. You just said that?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what I said."
Yeah, I was sleeping. It's
funny how honesty can, work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I thought this is kind of on the topic today. I was watching a TED Talk video, and it was called "How to Speak So People Want to Listen." And this guy was going down, he got into his thing, and he started with what he called the 7 deadly sins of speaking. And as he was reading through them, I just think that it obviously people that are triathletes speak to one another, but it really resonated with me because, and I want to give full disclosure, I think that as I got into triathlon and how it it was kind of this ego-driven thing, and a lot of his points really kind of hit home with me. And I think that you and I always talk about the sort of the motive behind, or the goal behind, the podcast is just to hopefully help some people and make triathlon a better sport in general, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And just a more a sport with more integrity and just more enjoyability and fun and satisfaction and things like that. And so what I ran by you, and you seemed to enjoy the idea, was that I wanted to kind of restructure this TED presentation into, I don't know if it's going to be called the 7 deadly sins of triathlon training, but it kind of applies. So I just want to go through them one by one and talk about it. And like I said, I have, full disclosure, done every one of these things. I think it's very human too, but I just thought it would be cool to kind of talk about our experience regarding these issues, and maybe how we have overcome some of it, and maybe what's a better path going forward. You down with that?
Oh, absolutely. These are some of my favorite topics.
Yeah,
and,
because
I think we can really weave them into an application for our listeners, whether it be triathlon related or personally related. And the great thing is they all intertwine. They're all part of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Work, hobbies, business ventures, distant family. They all kind of go together, and so they all intertwine. So they all affect each other. And so, no, I think these are some great ways we can address things. And I actually went through them quickly, and just at a quick glance, there are quite a few of them that just kind of stuck out to me the past couple days. So that's why I was kind of like, yeah, we can definitely go this route.
Yeah, and you see it develop, whether it be through Facebook pages or triathlon club gossip or things of that nature. But that leads into the first one, and this is according, and I'll link to this in the show notes. But it's by a guy named Julian Treasure, and these are his 7 deadly sins of speaking, and we are going to, like you said, weave them into triathlon based on our experience. And the number one sin that he has is gossip, and speaking ill of somebody who's not present. And then it's kind of like you always know that they're going to be talking about you 10 minutes later. So I don't know if you have any quick thoughts on gossip in triathlon and how that kind of impacts the overall sport.
Oh man, I don't know. I think gossip in general, I think, is just flat out evil. I think it not only does it eat away at the person who's talking about it, but it really can destroy other people. Because it's the more oftentimes a person who is gossiping is doing it for a personal reason and an insecurity of their own.
Yeah.
And gossiping in personal life or gossiping within sports, it is like a surefire way to drive a wedge between you and either somebody else or a passion and somebody else's interest in it.
Yeah.
I think triathletes, especially, like, I don't know, like, who triathletes or cyclists who are really just hated more outside of their community because of attitude or the way they talk bad about each other, or they can only do this, or they can only do that, or they're only doing this, or look how slow that person is. And I think we all forget about it. It's like, we do this for a hobby.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're listening and you go to Kona, guess what? It's still a hobby, and you just paid probably $20,000 this year to do it. Mm-hmm. So we just don't do a very good job of, or a lot of triathletes, I'm not going to say a lot of triathletes don't do a very good job of making the sport welcoming because of, I think, like I said, gossiping is really just a promotion and an outward show of one person's own insecurities.
For sure.
And that's what, and a lot of triathletes are insecure.
That's why we get into this, to build security.
Yeah, then all we do is just say something who's not about a certain person who's not present, and it's terrible any way you look at it.
Yeah, I think that we, like I said, we get into this, and at least I speak for myself and observation of others, but most people just get into it because they want to improve things in their own life, and then it sort of takes a life of its own, kind of, once you get into the grasp of the clicks and the sport and the races and them and whatever, and it's sort of like you forget the true meaning of what you were doing, and it's always competitive in a way, like you're never going to be the fastest, so it's easy to kind of reflect or put that, or project, I guess, that stuff on other people and gossip about little things. And it's all just, I think that's a no-brainer. So anyway, the second one I want to go into is what he said is judging. All right. So I'm really guilty of this, because you it's always like that weird conversation, right? You're talking to somebody you just met at a race or whatever, and then somebody says, I did Ironman Arizona, and then you can kind of tell that they want to bring up their time, and you want to bring up your times, and then you sort of like, when you hear how somebody did, it's just sort of a natural thing, like, oh, okay, I'm better than this person or whatever. And one of the things that I have learned over the last 4 or 5 years is that I used to, I don't know, you kind of like go and watch your friends or whatever, and I would go to these Ironman races, and a lot of my friends were getting done around 7 o'clock or something like that, and then you just kind of always naturally want to say, oh, here come, and then you walk away or whatever, in the slow people. But I really have started to gravitate towards the beauty of the effort of people coming in late, and where it really sunk into me actually was when I did the Rev 3 Knoxville race, and I never knew they did this because I would always walk away from the finish line, but I happened to stick around for the last finisher, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, but they get their whole crew and they tell everybody that's still around to come up and line the finisher chute, and they just go ballistic for the last person coming in. And man, what a perception changer that was for me, because it was just so powerful.
Oh, I mean, that is like, I think, one of the more underrated aspects of sports, and just in personal endeavors alone. I do this all the time. Like, I'm driving down the street and I see an individual who is on their run and who just looks like they're just struggling.
Yeah.
And to me, it might look like they're going, a very, very slow pace, but that could be the best run of their life.
Yeah. Right.
Because they could be, because people are, and I always hate it when people complain and bitch and moan at the beginning of the year about how crowded the gyms are and all. I'm like, last I checked, you had to start from somewhere too. Mm-hmm. And you have all these people, and you wonder why people quit going to the gym and quit their resolutions, because they feel unsupported and judged. And it's just one of my biggest pet peeves is judging someone else's journey strictly based on where you are on yours.
Oh yeah.
It's ridiculous, and I think it happens all the time. Like, if you I was watching some of the Super Bowl coverage or press conferences or whatever, and something struck me. I was like, you don't see, and this is so common in triathlon, is that people always wear gear from another race they've already done.
Yeah.
As like a badge of like, see, look what I did this already, and I'm here doing it again. And it's like, it'd be like some of the Super Bowl football players wearing pullovers and hoodies from like past AFC, NFC championship games, and apparel. Like, see, I've already been here before, and here I am again. Mm-hmm. It's all about right now and what am I about to do. And just because you're 30 and you found triathlon as a journey 10 years ago, and you're at a certain point in your life, what makes you any better than the person who just found it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
You got a head start. Why not be a positive example and encourage and say, man, you'll get there. And people, I think, have this common misconception about some of the top or pointy end triathletes. Oh, well, you've always been fast. Most haven't. I know I wasn't. Mm-hmm. I started well below average back in the pack. And I just think it's common. It's common in workplace, your personal life, every day. It's really easy to judge other people just based on where you are currently on your own journey. Yeah. And we just always got to remember, people are always at a different place in their journey than we are, and you should always respect that.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think, but like I've done that too, where I've worn other shirts and things like that, and I agree that there's a little bit of a weakness in there, like supercharge my ego or whatever. But again, it's almost like not even judging that person, because we don't know. But I know what you mean, because that's the sort of elitism undertone of the sport, is like, I'm a veteran and I've been around the game and blah blah blah, so whatever. But that goes on to number 3, which again, this is from the 7 deadly sins of speaking in general, but we're talking about triathlon speak here. So number 3 is negativity. And the point was how hard it is to listen to negative people for an extended period of time. And I think that, there's a lot of that obviously in triathlon in general, whether it applies to, there's always somebody out there, it seems like, just ready to scathe somebody for something, and again, we've done it, and I've done it. It's very, I think, tempting. It's like in general with social media and whatever, but you see it all the time on the triathlon message boards, and it's more the message boards, I think, than Facebook, because you're out there more on Facebook. You don't see a ton of negative assaults on there, but I think it's easy for people to sit back in their pain cave and just rip other people for thoughts and ideas or just different approaches or whatever it may be. And, like, we don't have all the answers. We're just throwing out discussion points for the most part, I think, and we can talk from experience, but the negativity is really rough sometimes.
Yeah, negativity, like overall negativity, just blows my mind. And and you see it every day now. I mean, just like I'm only on one social media platform, and I can't imagine those of you out there listening who are on multiple social media platforms. I'm only on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram or whatever else there is out there. I am on LinkedIn if you want to connect.
Well, that's professional of you.
Yeah, well, I have to be for work, but it's like I'm almost ready to just just basically shove it. I mean, if it wasn't for this podcast and connecting with those people, is just how much people right now in the political climate and landscape of the U.S. It's almost popular to want to create fear and be negative.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind how much people just engage with it. And I don't engage with it because it's not part of who I am. It's not part of what I want to portray, and I don't want to give that back and keep kind of circling it and make it continue, to be where it is.
Mm-hmm.
There was a quote that I saw somebody the other day, and this is another reason why I do stay on Twitter, is somebody posted a Booker T. Washington quote, and it said, "I shall allow no man to belittle my soul by making me hate them."
Yeah, I like it.
And yeah, and it was just struck me as man, right now that is because everybody just seems to want to argue and be negative and complain. And it's I just don't understand what that does and who it's good for and what it does. And I think negativity, is also just another symptom for most people of where they currently are in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Usually it's a lack of motivation or a lack of own personal willingness to make changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people just enjoy being that kind of the woe is me person. It's the end of the world, everything is horrible, and you suck at what you're doing because that's just kind of how I choose to see the world right now. Yeah. And in triathlon, I always like the people who will post things or say things if somebody asks it's so common, like you said, for somebody to genuinely post forums and Facebook, pages for these events are supposed to be places for information and for a community feel and for a gathering, and not a place to feel belittled and alienated.
Yeah.
And you see so many people who ask genuinely basic newbie, I just need information, questions. I have nowhere else to go, and they just get lambasted. And you wonder why people quit.
Yeah.
And I always love the post. It's listen, just do this, enjoy yourself, have fun, you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
How hard is it to say that? It takes more energy to be negative than it does to just be in the moment and choose to be positive.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Is that even I try to remember where I came from, So when I was getting into this and I started thinking I knew a lot about triathlon or whatever, and I would see one of those posts where somebody says, it's all going to work out. Just do what you do. And I would kind of get a natural opposition to that, because I was well, that's not the way to do it. You have to go crush and whatever. But I've learned over the time that I think a lot of this is, it's a topic or a condition that I always strive for, and that's mindfulness. And if you're aware of what's going on, and I wrote down 3 things that I read somewhere about mindfulness, and it's one is it means seeing clearly when we get caught up in our behaviors. 2, it means becoming disenchanted on a visceral level. And then 3 is naturally letting go. Those are the keys to being mindful about something. And I think that, being aware of what we're doing or that negative reaction and kind of sitting on it for a second with deep breaths or whatever like that, and just not putting it out there. And I do that all the time. I have a friend who he said he just gets so feisty sometimes and fed up on Facebook that he wants to just go off, because he's a really smart guy and he sees a lot of idiocy or whatever, negativity. But whenever he does that, he takes 3 deep breaths and posts a picture of his dog. I just think it's so great, But anyway, so this kind of dovetails into the next one, which is number 4 is complaining. And this guy made a joke about it. He said it's the national art of the UK. But so the complaining piece is, I don't even know where to start with that. It's like it rolls into the negativity, but
it's like my job.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, we have a no complain rule at my work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're complaining, you're not leading. And dear God, is there a lot of complaining just in general in the world right now? Mm-hmm. Like, be solution oriented and stop complaining. Like, don't bring me your problems, bring me solutions to fix X.
Yeah.
And it's like I had a conversation with one of my coaches the other day that was struggling with the fact that, like, we have all these so many, and this is just the nature of the gym business, but you have all these athletes who pay and just barely ever come. And our coaches love to be hands-on and work with our athletes and do things for them. And he's like, I just always reach out to so and so. They always say, like, work is just work is slowing me down. And it's hurting my progress. And I'm like, no, progress never stalls. Your motivation and your work ethic and your willingness and determination, they stall. Progress never stalls.
Right.
And it's about complaining and, like you said, the next one, making excuses. It's just like, I just, like, wah. Like, we really have it so good.
I know it.
That, like, people ask me, my day's good. Like, I really have nothing to complain about. Like, it's not kind of the person that I am. I feel very grateful to have the life that I have and be where I am. And it's like staying present and I think choosing to be grateful really often counteracts your willingness, or when you kind of get trapped in that complain mode.
Yeah.
Is to remind yourself what you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And then whatever you want to complain about really just seems to not be that big of a deal.
No.
And you kind of sound like a whiny baby, to be honest.
I know. Well, and again, I don't want to say that I've been immune to this, and neither of you. So let's just. I think a good example, like for this complaining one, that really resonates or sticks out for me is that whole thing about. Remember back when Chattanooga went the Ironman, they couldn't figure out a bike course that was 112 miles, so they went to 116.
Yeah.
You remember the outcry on that?
Oh, gosh. Man, you would have thought the end of the world was coming.
Endless. You're going 140.6 miles, and they're going to add 4. And it was just like, that was the biggest complaining piece I've ever seen in my life. And it was so amazing to me because I kind of got it at the time, because if you're kind of new and you want to be doing this, you want to do the exact distance or whatever. And finally, the race director came out and says, look, he said, this is great. He goes, I could redo this race and make it 112, but we're going to send it up into the mountains. And because the 116 course is relatively flat. And he was like, I'm going to put this up in the mountains. Is everybody cool with that? And then I was like, oh, no, it's all good. So it was just kind of this, shake up position and, kind of slap your brain around and get back into the mode of what's really something to complain about. And that certainly wasn't one of them. because it turned out to be perfect. And then, of course, and I guess that's the lesson, is that in the end, it turned out to be a point of pride, for
gosh,
everybody.
I know.
Yeah,
it's like, 144.6. I'm like, give me a break.
That, so it went the other way. But I guess the point is that, if you can, see it that way and understand that it's just going to be a little bit more of a challenge or whatever,
Gosh.
you can win. So, and of course, number 5 on the list was excuses. I don't think there's ever an excuse in a race. I've never seen anybody have an excuse.
Oh, never. Everybody has the perfect race and just kind of swallows up their humility and takes what they get. Yeah, it's pretty common.
Man, I have to really hold back sometimes because I'm right. It's just it's a natural tendency, I think, to be like, well, my derailleur wasn't working right, or had a look.
99 times out of 100, you get what you deserve. It's that's just how it is. That's sports. I mean, yes, it takes a lot of luck and a perfect day to like really, really do well, I believe. And I think anybody will say that at any, you have to have a lot of luck. Especially when you're doing something of that long. But 99 times out of 100, you get what you deserve.
Yeah.
Because your training and your approach and your preparation and your pacing and your strategy, like you just get what you deserve. And people are just so, a lot of individuals are just so caught up in never taking responsibility for their result and always finding something else. And it usually starts way before the race.
Well, it's preparation, I was going to say.
A lot of people use excuses as their preparation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true too.
Going into, it just hasn't been a great build-up. I just, haven't done well. I just had a lot of family commitments. I've only run like 13 miles, and I've only ridden like 40. You're like, all right, well, when you race like crap, don't let the excuses fly. Like, you don't really have any excuses. You just got the result you deserved.
It's definitely a defense mechanism. It's right.
Sure.
It sets you up, and again, I've been guilty of it. I haven't been able to run as much as I'd like, or whatever the case may be, and I think it takes.
What's one of the best ones you've ever heard?
Oh man, I can't come up with one right now. I know you got one on your mind, maybe.
No, I mean I've got a few. I'm not gonna name them, but
yeah, that's the thing. Is like I kind of feel like if I brought them up, people would know who they are or whatever. And but usually it comes down to, like you said, I think it.
Blaming on-course nutrition is one of my personal pet peeves.
Oh yeah. Dude, I mean, I hate to put you under the bus, but I've heard that from you before, way back in the day. But
no, you haven't.
Well, come on, dude. I heard you do that at Louisville before I met you. But you were a different guy back then. That's the whole point. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was you. Anyway, but you're a different person.
Before we ever talked, you had it. You heard that from me.
I don't mean that you're a different person. I just think you're in a way different place right now.
Better.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But you've worked at it so hard. You've gone through so much, and we all just have that, I guess, animalistic instinct to sort of, make excuses or whatever. And
my day at Louisville, that was I took way too much. I took too much of my own personal salt pills, and I destroyed my own race.
Yeah,
I was an idiot about it. I took way too much salt, and ended up on the side of the road for like 45 minutes.
Right. Yeah. So I totally get it. And I'm the master of trying to not put in the mileage and then like leaving that as a like kind of a subconscious excuse, because I just don't like riding a lot on the bike, and so my whole motivation piece is usually like, well, I haven't come close to riding 112 miles this year, so if I don't do well, that's my excuse. But I really try not to use it. I just use it as a motivator. Sometimes it's like, well, suck it up. And I always have this kind of like glossy fantasy that, this is going to be an amazing day, that I'm going to just pull some shit out of my ass and amaze everybody. But it never happens. It always, ends up being exactly about what I would realistically think it would be. So anyway, in this one, Number 6 on this list is lying and exaggeration. I think that this happens a little bit in training. I don't know. Do you think people talk a good game?
I used to, and I think now everything is most people are so digitally connected in some kind of a tracking network that they can't lie about it because everybody sees it. So it's like, don't tell me you went out for a 15-mile ride and I can see it here on Garmin Connect or MyFitnessPal or Strava. You only did 10 and you walked the last 3. Like, I think most people can't. Now, if you don't share it with people, then of course you can. But I don't think it's nearly as popular to do that as it used to be. But then again, it's all just a part of overcoming, personal issues that deal with not having a lot of self-confidence and feeling like you have to overcompensate. And, most of that stuff just is woven into the fabric of how people think and react.
Yeah, and misremember. I've heard a lot of that. I did this at a certain race. And
alternative facts.
Alternative facts. There's a lot of that going on.
It's a new phrase right now, like from what I hear.
It's funny that my tendency to lie and exaggerate with my training numbers is usually to understate them. Because I'm like, I didn't really do much before, but I probably did a little bit more or something like that. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
I think most people now they always kind of shade towards the way of, it was a pretty easy 15 miles.
Yeah.
Like, if you were wearing a GoPro that watched your face the whole time, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have said easy. I'm pretty sure you would have been red-faced, cotton-mouthed, just panting to death. Don't tell me it was easy.
Yeah, I was like that was a good.
Kind of like your swim yesterday.
I was going to bring it up, man. I texted you right after I swam. I said, I just crushed a swim, and you're like, what's your definition of crushed? And then I had to go into this long explanation about how...
First you said I crushed 2K, and then I was like, really, what's your definition of crush? And you said, well, actually it was 1,900 meters. Oh. Perfect example.
It is. That's what I'm saying, man. I'm vulnerable. I'm just a human being. Yeah, and then my version of crush became, I felt like I was fairly solid throughout, and, we
went from crushed 2,000 meters to I swam nonstop for 1,900.
But in my mind, I felt like I could have crushed it.
And listen, that is, there's a book out there that everybody should read, and it actually goes with kind of the topics for the day. And actually, it's shockingly enough, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of hate Tom Brady. I'm a Dolphins fan, so I have an excuse because we're in our division. It's not just a hatred for him because he wins all the time and his wife's a supermodel and he has the best life ever. But
that's envy. That's another deadly sin.
That is definitely one. But they did this piece on him about his reading of a book called The Four Agreements. And it is one of my favorite books. If you're out there listening and you have never heard of it or have had no idea what it is a wonderful book. It's called The Four Agreements, and the four agreements are these. 1, be impeccable with your word. 2, don't take anything personally. 3, don't make assumptions. And 4, always do your best. And they've got little bullet points underneath them. But what got you saying that, but I felt great in my head was that when it talks about don't take anything personally, part of what they say is, what others say and do is a projection of their own reality and their own dream. It has literally nothing to do with you. And it's just it's a manifestation of what they are personally going through or their life, and it has really nothing to do with you or aimed at you. And so that's what also makes it hard, or it makes it easier for me not to judge other people, because I look at it in a way of, listen, what they're doing, or what they're saying or doing or acting or believing, that's their own reality. It's not mine. But like you said, like in your head, you were like, hey man, that swim was like the best swim ever, and for you, that's all it needed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's funny how I, yeah, because you replied, you're like, man, you're confident today. And I said, yeah, actually I was. It felt, I thought to myself, well, there it is. There's the baseline that I can go from. And yeah, I guess in some ways it may have been an exaggeration, but for me it wasn't. So I don't know. So let's get on to the seventh one here, which is dogmatism, and basically that's the confusion of fact with opinions. So this is a little bit. Yeah, so many opinions out there, and I'm really, I think in a lot of ways I'm guilty of this, because I go, well, again, it's like alt facts, or they're facts to me. Because I am such a listening to my body kind of guy, and I'm not a big, researcher or scientist type guy. And you're big on the research, which I think is great, which I think maybe, makes our discussion, better in a lot of ways, is that, it's not all one-sided and I have these opinions or whatever, but you like to go on fact, and I appreciate that.
I mean, the day in life that we live in now is read the title of a headline and immediately share it without reading.
Yeah,
that's the world we live in. It's funny because I always like to read full-length articles, and I still, after 5 years of our friendship, I'll still send them to you on my phone, knowing you won't read them until they get to your laptop. But I love to read, and I love to, I like to know the entire story, just because it's important, and those are facts. But one of the main things is that people usually draw a conclusion based on what they want the conclusion to be before they even have read it.
Yeah, for sure. They like to supplement their own belief system.
Exactly. And it's like, and that leads to, the other 6 we went over: gossip, judging, negativity, complaining, excuses, and lying. Lying to yourself. Making excuses goes to what facts are. Complaining about somebody else who might have a different opinion. It's just like facts, I think, and that's your own reality in general, is just like sometimes you confuse, the confusion of fact with opinions. Mm-hmm. But that's why I think you should never be satisfied with learning and where you are. Mm-hmm. I would rather follow and read and be mentored by somebody who believes that they know nothing and are always searching for more, than somebody who calls himself an expert.
Yeah, I agree.
And like, I saw somebody's Twitter handle the other day, and I was like, who is this? And it was like, nutrition expert. Nope. Bye. See you later. I don't want nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Well, that's the buzzword, expert. Make yourself an expert in the field.
Yeah, I honestly have no interest in anybody who claims that they're an expert.
Well, and the thing about that is, like, that's the online marketing buzzword. So
is it?
They'll tell you to, how you can make money online or whatever. The first step is you have to establish yourself as an expert. And how do you do that? You write a book, or you write a manifesto or something, and then and then it becomes your expertness. So when your
expertness of BS,
right? I mean, I think a lot of times that is the case, and there's so much BS out there in general. But when I talk about my opinion, I think what I mean by that is I listen to my facts are truly based in my gut and my heart, and I think a lot of times people really know the right answer or response or way to respond to somebody, but they, like you mentioned, that they end up lying to themselves, and they go with that brain trickery or whatever, that says that this is really the right thing to say, but it's not really what you believe.
No, I mean, most people's opinions are facts they've concluded based out of their own personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And first off, like, who are we to say that that's wrong?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like that's why it's so great for other people to have so many different opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you're open to hearing them, then you might actually learn something useful about another person or another subject, and B, you're more than likely going to learn something more about your own personal opinion.
Yeah.
Rather, I'm going to be either just more concrete in its belief, or my door is always going to be open to, okay, maybe I wasn't right. And I had this talk with Allie the day. It was like when you see all these parents taking their really, really young children to these like protests, and it's like, I think it's a little bit too young to do that for children, but it's like that's how people end up with their methodology and their beliefs 50 years from now, based on somebody else's 45 years before.
Yeah.
And people aren't open to figuring out things, and it happens all the time, especially in politics and religion. It's like, why did I believe what I believed when I was 10? Oh, well, because I went to church with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did you really believe it then? Probably not. That's just all I knew. And then once you open your door to other experiences and other religions or whatever it may be, I'm just using religion as an example, but it's that openness to always want to be learning that makes you approachable and more susceptible to actually gaining more knowledge and becoming your own person, and therefore it makes it easier to not have that confusion between facts and opinions.
Yes. And I think that's actually a good segue into the sort of the what this guy called the 4 powerful cornerstones or foundations to stand on. And as you know, again, we're going to relate this back to maybe that casual conversation at a race, or your training buddies or whatever it may be. But I don't know. I just think overall it would have impact on the sport and in general, as far as the reputation and the way we perceive it, the way others sort of perceive it, and everything like that. But number one is honesty, and that's just be clear and straight. I mean, I don't really know what else to say about that, but I think that has proven over time that honesty is a good angle to take.
Yeah, honesty is the best policy.
Yeah.
That's proof.
So
always.
Yeah. So number 2 though is this authenticity, which is about be yourself and really stand in your own truth. And I think that's sort of what I was getting at with your gut and your heart and stuff like that. And just I think it's really refreshing when you have a conversation with somebody, and I mean, there's nothing more exciting to me actually is when somebody comes with something honest or authentic that sort of shocks me, that makes them human. You know what I mean? Like you expect them to say something to try and impress you or whatever, but they go the other way and become kind of humble and human in that regard. With regard to their training, or like not an excuse about training, but like I just couldn't figure out how to find the energy, or I don't know. What I'm getting at here, like this.
No, I think authenticity is what makes people the most attracted or attractive to other people, when it not physically, but when it comes to wanting to be around other people or listen to other people. It's like what you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. And like for me and for like those listeners out there, like the emails that we've gotten and the reviews we've gotten, honestly, the word that makes me like feel incredibly good about what we're doing is when I see or hear the word authentic. Like, they're really authentic. They don't, it's like what you see is what you get. There is no agenda. the purpose is to do the best we can to enjoy, what we do by helping others in a sport that we enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's this, it's so difficult, even for me, to always be authentic, even though I feel like I've done a really, really good job the last 3 or 4 years of, this is definitely the most authentic I've ever been. And I choose to shield myself by not being on Facebook and not being on Instagram and places like that, because I feel like it harms and really deters your ability to be truly authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least it's too much of a temptation, I believe, for most people, and I think I'm one of those, that you get so caught up in being the way someone wants you to be, or the way that you should be, or the way that you think others want to see you as, instead of just being okay being who you are, where you are at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's just a huge part of just self.
It becomes almost like a trigger for inauthenticity in some ways, for me, because when you try to live up that ladder, or try to be in certain places, certain circles, or whatever, you want to respond kind of in kind, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're responding with yourself. Number 3 in the cornerstones, foundations of how to approach this stuff is integrity. Basically, be your word. And that's the same thing. In a lot of ways, that's similar to authenticity. It's acting, and backing up your talk, with your action.
Well, and that's also a common theme for how you treat yourself.
Yeah.
One of those are very similar, like the 4 agreements, but number 1 is be impeccable with your word. Mm-hmm. And one of the points underneath that one is avoid using the word to speak against yourself. Speaking against yourself and being negative to yourself is the exact same as gossiping about others, because it's meant to hurt. And I think a lot of people could use that when it comes to sports as really by using their own personal integrity to always choose to be supportive and positive, and just genuinely grateful to themselves. And that's something I think the world lacks in general, but I think athletes that are type A lack a ability to show themselves grace.
Absolutely.
And I think that's an important part of how people can continue on a journey and actually like it.
Yeah.
Is to speak kindly of yourself, and the integrity, speaking with integrity and acting in integrity isn't just about me not gossiping about you or choosing to build you up instead of tear you down. It's also the same approach I use when I have those internal conversations. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you can't do this. Oh, see, so and so, always said you couldn't do this. Like, that's the integrity that will really stick with you. And when it comes to sports, positive self-talk and belief and positive affirmations, you see it all the time. Like, that's what people do before big, huge events, is positive affirmations and speaking kindly to themselves. Not using the, oh, well, see, so-and-so told you could never be this, now go out and show them. Well, you're robbing yourself of a moment, stuck in a moment 10 years before that was built on negativity and hate.
Yeah. So, and that brings us to number 4, which I think is exactly the same as what you were just talking about with regard to yourself. But it's number 4 is love, and basically genuinely wish the other person well. If you're truly wishing someone well, you can't judge them at the same time. And yeah, that's a huge one, man. I mean, I think if you're the self-love and belief system that you create for yourself is something that can spill over into other lives. And it's like you wonder sometimes, are you really, when I got into this to endurance sport, I felt this genuine sense of community that sort of didn't care that it was a competition, because it sort of isn't. It's really a competition with yourself on so many levels. But as time goes on, you you want to be good, and then you sort of get this whole competitive thing in there with other people, and you want to stand out as a AWA athlete or something like that in Ironman, which is just a crock. It's just a sort of a thing that sets people up to say that, yeah, well, I'm a sort of special in this sport or whatever like that. And it's just like, how many variables go into play? I mean, I've gotten that either. I didn't even know I got it one time, and it's like, why did I get that?
It's because you either did well or you have enough residual income that you can just strictly participate in enough races to get one.
Right. Yeah. It's all about accumulating points. So anyway.
Yeah.
No,
I think love, and that's honestly, I think, where I don't know. I may be going a little too deep with this, but we're about 50 minutes in, and if you've hung on this long to our non-triathlon talk, then I'll try to bring it home for you. I honestly think that is why, like, at the core of it, this sport is struggling.
Okay.
Bucket list events and bucket list races and endeavors usually come from the inability to fill a void personally, and you look for a way to do it with another outside action. And when you look at someone's growth and their personal growth, emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever that growth may be, you cannot find it over the course of a year. Yeah. If you can grow that much in a year, then write a book. I'll read it. Because most people can't. I know I couldn't. It's still taking me time. And you don't have these characters within sport that I don't think are good enough ambassadors of just, hey, I've been there, I've done that, it's hard. Lionel Sanders is probably the most popular triathlete on the planet right now. And I think it's because of his humble beginnings. I think it's because of how relatable he is. I think it's because of how humble he is, for the most part. I think it's about how his I think it's his willingness to, still be like the common man.
Yeah.
And I think people like that comeback story. You don't necessarily think it's a comeback story for when he used to struggle with drugs and alcohol in his, I think, late teens to early 20s. But you can see his true love for the sport and his humility and how it has affected and personally changed the love he has for himself. Yeah. And I think that, we talked about this when we were joking around Ironman races about how they're just like a conference for the recluses of insecurity in the world. It's like if you just opened up yourself more and from a vulnerability standpoint, vulnerability, in my opinion, is one of the most attractive things about any individual.
100%.
I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. Like humility, and I think humility and vulnerability go hand in hand. But in order to do those things, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be authentic, and you have to be like, there is no place for you to speak negatively about yourself. And I think that whether it's a symptom of or just a result of how people are in the world in general now, and thus that's why the sport is that way. I don't know. I think they go hand in hand. I think there aren't enough great personal, accessible role models within the sport, and then I also don't think that the average age group athlete, there aren't enough that are willing to, I always talk about is to share their difficulties and their trials and whatever it is and their mistakes with others always the door should always be open. And I feel like in triathlon more often than not, the door's always closed. Or you have to knock like 20 times to get an answer.
Yeah. I think, in a nutshell, the way I see this is sort of that so many people, including me, have a tendency to associate themselves or brand themselves or be as a triathlete instead of just being a human, and that does things like this. And there's so many ways that we can, use this as a shiny object and forget about the humility and humbleness, which is awesome, man. And the vulnerability piece that you just brought up is massive for me. There's nothing more attractive than somebody who's they're confident enough and authentic enough in themselves to be vulnerable. So,
yeah, I mean, it's I had this conversation with the vice president of franchise support for the company that I work for, and we use this internal social network called Yammer. It's only for the employees across the country that work for our company. And I was just telling him how worthless I thought it was. Because it's the same as every other social media network. It's tell me all of your good stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was just telling him in my position, sometimes I can feel incredibly lonely because of where I am personally, I'm at the top. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I would much rather hear of people's struggles and frustrations and pitfalls. I would much rather read about them to learn and to feel more like of a community, because nobody's perfect and we all struggle. But I feel like that's the same with pretty much everything in the sport we're talking about. It's like, I would much rather hear about your struggles and why it's hard to find motivation and what you need and how you've learned and grown from it, than just see somebody who always crushes every workout and says, they love life every day. I'm sure there's a couple people out there, but I don't find you that interesting. Sorry.
Well, I mean, yeah. And as you say that, it occurred to me that I would love to hear from people who have been through that, who resonate, or some of this stuff resonates with, and maybe we could get them on here and talk about it, because...
No, I would love that. I think that's kind of why we're doing it, is to help other people and help ourselves. Yeah. It helps us talk through it, and this is, this podcast is in a way a way for us to be vulnerable and to kind of let our things out there. But no, I'd absolutely love to know other people's struggles. And most of the athletes that I work with, I like to know their struggles that have nothing to do with the sport. It's like it's all important stuff, because it makes you who you are, and that's important. And that's what the sport attracts a lot of people, but it's the people within the sport that attract the most. And that's kind of, where I'd like to see some of the biggest changes.
Yeah. All right. So if you're still hanging around, thank you. And please email us at crushingiron@gmail.com and let us know what you think. And if you have something you want to share, we can come have you on here. It doesn't have to be, the whole podcast or whatever, but we can kind of share your story if you don't feel like going an hour, and just talk about some stuff. We'd like to get some more dialogue going on that, because everybody's struggle is as valuable as the next person's, and I really believe that. And I love the it's so easy, like you said, to gloss over and post the highlights in life, and I think that it's reassuring and comforting for people to hear other stories like that and identify with them and relate and find something in there, that can help the next person. So that's where it's at. We are at iTunes. Obviously, subscribe to us and please pass on the word.
Yeah.
And anything else, brother?
That's it, man. That's all I got.
Okay. Thanks for listening to Crushing Iron Podcast, and we will be back with you, I guess, on Thursday. So thanks for stopping in, and
Can I give a Super Bowl prediction?
Oh shoot, we got so wrapped up in our own egos that we forgot about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, today's Saturday. I mean, for us.
Yes,
but
that's true.
I got a baby shower to go to for one of my coaches, and then we got the Super Bowl. I'm predicting a Falcons victory. I'm predicting 38. 32.
Wow. As you know, I don't really follow the NFL a whole lot. I do like Tom Brady. I've always respected the Patriots and liked them sort of as that, gold standard in a way of how to
They are.
run
Them
an
and the
organization.
Spurs. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do have to say that I think I agree with you. In fact, I kind of feel like the Falcons might blow them out a little bit.
Don't jinx it, man.
I think they're going to beat them.
I did. For those of you listening, I did call the Clemson Alabama game almost to the nose.
Okay.
I did say Clemson. You know that. I called Clemson, I think, by 4.
You're quite a predictor.
Which is what I am. I don't predict much, but when I predict, I'm on.
Do you have algorithms or something? Do you have a private algorithm?
No, honestly, my 2 greatest predictions. And if you're listening, Rebecca Appleton, we're extending this podcast to an hour and 15 to make your ride commute as you requested. Since we're at about an hour now.
Yeah.
No, but anyway, my 2 greatest predictions ever. First was probably when I guessed your 70.3 time down to the minute.
My first one.
Your first one in Muncie, I predicted your time down to the minute. Mm-hmm. And then another athlete that I just started with, Matthew Dickinson, if you're listening, he can vouch for this, is he did a treadmill aerobic test for me where I had him have an average heart rate at 140 for the whole time. And before he started, before he was allowed to show me his results, I predicted, I think it was like a 10-11 is what I predicted.
Uh-huh.
And he did 10-10s.
Wow.
So I'm pretty sure it would have been 10-11. He just found a way to take a second off just to spite me. But no, it's luck.
Well,
I mean, some of it is. Some of it's I think I'm pretty smart, but a lot of it's luck. More of it's luck than me being smart. We know that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you practice it a lot in your head, if nothing else. You kind of like.
I do that.
So anyway, okay. I guess that's. Both of our predictions are the Falcons. In some ways I kind of want the Patriots to win, but I don't really care.
Don't. That's all right.
Sorry, man.
That's all right. Don't spoil it for me because I'm going to DVR the second half like usual because I'll be in bed before it's over.
All right.
I did that for the Clemson Bama game. I DVR'd the second half and then I turned my phone off. Woke up that next morning and put on a pot of coffee. And watch the second half uninterrupted with no commercials.
At 4 a.m.? Nice.
Yeah, at 4 a.m. So until next time, we'll see you on Thursday.
All right. Keep crushing iron.
Yep, see you. All right, bye-bye.